Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Femme Tell All podcast. My name is Madison Bellissimo.
And I'm Ruth Devereaux.
And we are so happy you're here. And today's podcast episode is about babies.
To have one, to not have one, to be judged,
to be or not to
not
be.
be judged.
What's the tea? What's the tea? As a woman, as a person,
absolutely.
What are the preconceived notions of whether you should start a family or not, and the pressures that you face at certain ages?
Yeah.
All
I think
the things.
I've gotten it a lot recently because for once I'm finally in a relationship where people are like, yes, you should maybe
we love you two together. Procreate. Yeah.
So I'm getting it a lot, and I genuinely go back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
And that's just my own personal stuff. Like I go back and forth saying like, I love kids. I love being around them. I think kids are great. I love being an aunt. I love now that you're an aunt. Like I love all of that.
Yeah.
But I also know personally for me, for having kids, it's always been such a massive decision. No,
it is.
It's huge.
I don't think that's debatable.
I honestly don't. I don't think people truly give it the weight that it really deserves.
People throw caution to the wind.
They do.
1,000%.
I think everybody thinks you're supposed to have kids. So when people have kids that shouldn't have kids, people still support it. And I'm like, no.
I know a couple.
Yeah.
I know a couple.
Yeah, I do too.
And even nannying, when I was nannying, not every family, I don't want, if any of the people that I used to nanny for is watching this, I'm not talking about you. But there's been a couple of families that I was like, oh, you didn't want kids.
Yeah.
Like you genuinely didn't want kids, but then
just
you
like,
had
you thought
them.
that was
You
the
thought
next
that was the
step.
next step in your relationship. It's like, we get married, we get the house, we get kids, and then we die. And you're just like, oh, Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, to me, it's everybody can not everybody, but like the majority of people can just have kids.
Yeah.
And they don't really put the thought into it. And I almost feel like people should be tested. Like we do test for everything else.
Oh, totally.
But like anybody can be a parent and like it's supposed to be okay.
No, absolutely.
And it's the biggest factor to how society is shaped and the way people are raising their kids. And I know some excellent parents, but it takes a lot of work. It takes all of your focus.
It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job, and that should be your focus. If you're deciding to have a child, that should be your focus, and they should be the only thing you're worried about, or however many kids you choose to have, that should be your focus. But people don't either have the ability to, because they're now having to survive to support the kids, or they just don't have the want to.
Yeah.
And that affects then again that generation, because as they get older and like the scars that they're left with because maybe
childhood
their parents,
trauma or anything.
totally.
Yeah.
And I think so many people, when they think of having a kid, they think of the infant.
Yeah.
They think of the joy of like when you first have this baby that can't talk back to you, that isn't its own person yet. You think about those moments, or you think about the highlight reel.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about like the work you have, the planning, the forward thinking that you have to have as a parent to make sure that child has the best opportunity.
Absolutely. The 16-year-old that's calling you going, hey, mom and dad, my car got towed. And not being like, there's so many there. And I'm going to quote another movie because I love quoting movies, apparently. But Parenthood, there's this really fantastic line where Keanu Reeves, Bay, he says, it's fucking crazy. You have to have a license to catch a fish, but not to be a dad. Yeah. And I was like,
it's true.
It's true. Like
it's absolutely true.
We don't like anyone, and it's so sad because you're right.
What
There's
about adopting though? Like for people that want, like really want to be parents and they aren't unable to, the hoops they have to jump through.
Oh yeah, specifically same-sex couples. Usually, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
It's insane.
And like to your point, there's so many couples that aren't able to have children, whether it's biologically or they're like fertility, they have fertility issues, and they would do anything to have children. And then there's people that get pregnant like this, no problem, and they're just like throwing caution to the wind, and then their parents, and then they hate it, they resent their children, and it's so devastating.
I mean, not to like I feel like I have the best mom in the entire world, but I have the worst dad in the entire world. I'm just gonna say it. I don't care.
Yeah.
But like he has multiple, like he has me and my sisters and like another child, and like none of us feel like he was present
ever there
for
you.
Yeah.
Supportive.
Never. Yeah.
And
like now, like if I look at my friends that are parents and like the people that are genuine parents, like and the work that goes into it, I'm like, how were you not able to have that shift in you? But maybe he just wasn't ready. Maybe he wasn't, he didn't want that, or like there was just different factors. We forget our parents are people.
Sure.
And I saw a quote the other day saying, be kind to your parents because they're living life for the first time as well.
Yeah.
That's completely fair. Don't give you a pass if you're watching but I mean, honestly, like there is like some kind of, I give passes to the people that deserve it, but like there's a lot that goes into being a parent that I don't think people fully think through prior to making that decision. Yeah.
And I think like I'm gonna say something controversial. I get so angry, especially with men that don't use protection and then are like, "What? She got knocked up," and it's like,
no, yeah, you
weren't
know
involved
how to
protect yourself.
You weren't involved at all.
You know how to protect yourself. There's actually a multitude of birth control resources that you can do purposely. You know, and I don't know, vasectomy. I don't know. If you don't want to have kids, fucking get a vasectomy. I'm so sorry. I know it sounds like invasive and all these things. It's usually
way less
reversed.
Invasive than what women have to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's
even with birth control.
Yeah. And we're gonna do another episode about that because I get so heated about birth control. But that's where I get so angry because a lot of the dads that I know that are like deadbeat dads, and I don't use that term loosely, but like,
no, you can use it. Yeah,
like that don't show up for their kids, and it's always like these men that were like back in the day, not caring about the women they were sleeping with, having no protection, doing this, and I'm like, even my dad, who's a very caring dad and everything, like we got into a discussion. This is not normal family discussions for us, but I was saying something about how like I'm so shocked, even in this day and age, it can be a chore to ask a man to wear a condom.
Yeah.
We'll do another episode about this. And I was like, isn't that fucking insane? And he was like, I never wore condoms. And I was like, ah! And I literally was like, I can't believe, first of all, you're telling me this. Second of all, I was like, I can't compute this. And I was just like, but then I second was like, what do you mean? And he was like, oh yeah, no, I never did. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, that's why so many people were oopsie-daisy children. Yeah. And it's like, and there was more pressure, I think, unfortunately, to not have access to abortion and things like that.
We'll do an episode on that as well.
Love to. But that's where it's insane to me. Like, so many guys that are like, oh, she got knocked up. She got knocked up. You were half of that equation. Yeah. And I'm sorry, my guy. You getting off, you finishing is what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the sperm came from.
Yeah.
That's where we're getting the baby.
Yeah.
She didn't have to. Yeah. She's just, and I'm not saying it's not but I'm like,
for sure, but like it's equal.
It doesn't. Yeah. And it doesn't require a woman climaxing to become pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
My guy.
So
yeah. So
just
I'm
gonna leave that right there.
Yeah. So I'm just like, it's so hard for me.
It's so frustrating, and like I think we see it so much in society of it being the woman's problem to not only protect herself from pregnancy, but also to make the decision. And then also be the primary caregiver most of the time if that decision is made.
And let's be clear, I do think it is the woman's decision.
It is, yeah.
I think it can be a joint decision. Yeah. In our perfect world, it is a joint decision. But ultimately, I do think it's a woman's body.
Absolutely,
We're very clear on that here.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, it does all fall on the woman. Yeah. And then it falls on the woman to decide, like, well, you need childcare and you're the child. Yeah. It's not assumed that if there's a dad involved that he's going to be a stay-at-home dad.
It's very different culturally too, which is interesting because I know that in Korea, my mom said that most, like if the parents separate, it actually goes to the father.
Oh, really?
Which is very different like here because like, but also in Asian culture, like men are looked at differently. And like, I don't know if it's still like that. I know that when my mom was younger, that's what happened.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how different cultures see it different ways. Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say are like the main pressures you get? Like, obviously the main pressure in general is like for you to have kids probably. Yeah. But like, where do you think it comes from mostly? How do you think it's delivered? Yeah. How do you think people should avoid? Like, is there helpful tips you can give someone?
I think the pressure comes from society mainly. For sure. And I think it's more so, but I think I also see it from two point of views because I understand why it comes from society. Mm-hmm. I understand that the goal of having a family has always supposedly been like what a woman is meant to do, like what our bodies are built to do.
Calling, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then also knowing. So the one thing I always said about having kids is it's the only decision you can't go back on, but it's also the only decision you can't go back on if you don't choose to have them at a certain age. Yeah. So there's this consistent ticking time bomb for women that's like, now like even still people are like, no, you can still have kids. I'm 38. And I'm like, the risks that now come along with that are so much more massive that I'm like, there's still a balance even between that now. Like, do I risk like having a child that might like have special
health
needs
issues.
because because of that or anything along those lines? Or am I now at an age where by the time they're at a certain age, I'll be aged out to be like the best parent I could be to them.
Sure.
But then there is also the fear of like, I love this person I'm with. Will I regret not having a child with them? Absolutely. Will I regret not like taking this moment to make something so special together? So,
and I love how you phrased that in the past when we've talked about having kids and, you know, just casually as friends. Yeah. You've been like, well, this is the first time in my life that I'm feeling like, oh, I do want to create something with my partner. Like this is something that we create together. I think when you
love somebody so much and you look at them and you think about the ultimate expression of love, it is making something that represents both of you together. And I think that in my point of view of having a child with somebody is what that is. Like you join, and that's how you become a family, because you join together to create this being.
And that's so beautiful. And it really, when you say it like that, that makes me, I'm someone that teeters from, I was always someone back in the day when I was a kid, I loved babies. Like my mom always says, like if I was lost, which your girl would run. And not in like, I never was like stranger danger, but I would always go to babies or puppies. Yeah. And she'd be like, you just have to look for another baby. Maddie's there. And I would be like 3 and I'd be like talking to a baby like, beep, 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 beep. I'm like, who did I think I was? And I always thought like people would ask me when I was a kid, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would always be like, a mom. And I felt that for so long. And then going into my mid-20s, I was like, I don't know if I feel that
for you.
Definitely the civil unrest. Yeah. Like, I think that's a huge, and global warming.
So more so the fear of where the world is going to be headed.
I'm like, how is that fair to bring someone into this where they're like, everything's great, everything's fun, and then they're like, by the way, there's war, there's famine, you know, and you're like, huh?
That's fair.
And I think
that's a real fear. Like, that's a very valid point in this day and age. We really don't know where this world is headed, and to bring an innocent being into it purposefully.
Yeah. And I just feel like, who am I to say? You know, like that, like you should be brought into the world, you know, and I do think, you know, when you say it like that, then I'm like, if I found my partner, I would want that. I would presumably want to create something with them.
But then again, like we go back and forth on it so much too, because we're like, we just found each other. Yeah. And so it's like, we want to enjoy every step of this like journey, like as we're taking these different milestones in our relationship, like
moving in together, getting married, traveling.
Like I want all of that. But then at my age, like what? Like I'm like, okay, we got to get it done in a year. Yeah. So then like I'm at a certain point, like it just, it's, so I think that I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, if it was to happen, great. But if it doesn't, I'm okay with that too. Yeah. And that doesn't take anything away from who I am as a woman. Doesn't take anything away from what our partnership is.
Absolutely.
And I'm okay getting old and just being an auntie to other people's kids around me.
You're such a good auntie. Thank you. You really are. Like your nieces and nephews love you, and it's abundantly clear.
You're gonna have the same.
I know. I'm like obsessed with my little nephew now, and if it's funny because like, I thought with my parents have been like fucking drilling us for years now. Who's gonna have a kid? Who's gonna have a kid? We need to be grandparents. We need to be grandparents. And we thought, me and Alex were like, woo! And Tristan even was like, woo! Now that Max had a baby, we're all good.
Like,
and on this trip, they were like, who's next? And I was like, literally, I was like, are you kidding me? And my mom, like, my dad and my mom, I would watch them, like, I would see them watching me holding the baby, and they'd be like, you're so natural. You're so natural. And I'd be like, guys, I just want to love this baby as his aunt. Thank you so much.
But, you know, I think that's societal, too, because if you talk to anybody at any step in their life, it's like if you're dating, when are you getting engaged? If you're engaged, when's the wedding? When you get married, when are you having kids? When you have a kid, when are you having another one? Yeah. I honestly think sometimes it's just people's way of like communicating or like wanting to see like that next like.
And I think it is innocent. I think you're right. Like a lot of people are not trying to be disrespectful. And I think it is hard. There's so much nuance there because, first of all, like you brought up, you don't know if you would maybe experience health issues because of your age, right? Because where you're at, you're a geriatric pregnancy, which is insane.
Yeah.
Like, and I understand that they have to have certain medical names for certain things, but like when you look at you're a healthy, amazing young woman, and you're like, how is that geriatric?
Right.
First of all,
it doesn't feel, but it is.
Yeah, but and then like, okay, then there's the other side of it. What about if you and Neil were actively trying?
Yeah.
And people are like, so when's the baby? When's the baby? When's the baby? And that's so insensitive.
Oh, completely.
Because there's people that like,
are struggling and trying.
And
it's
trying.
Such an emotional journey that they're going through every month.
Yeah.
And
or maybe miscarried, or who knows? Like,
you don't know.
You genuinely, I think it's like, my rule of thumb, it's like with any person in my life, let alone woman, like anyone I'm never going to be like, so kids, because it's like, it's just let them say it. Like you can bring it up in general and be like, hey, I'm newly an aunt and babies are cute, aren't they? Yeah. And then see if they bring it up. And if they're like, yeah, actually, I want to have one of my own. Yeah. Oh, cool. When do you want to have a kid? That's when you can really open and broach the subject. But I think so
that's
many
such
people,
a great way of saying it too. I think we in our natural speak can say something and not mean to be insensitive, but we just don't know where everybody's at in their journey,
what they're going through.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, there's so many options now, alternative options, and some people are even sensitive to that. Like, I had a mentor years ago when I was like 23, and she decided not to have children, but I think it was something that she somewhat regrets now, unfortunately. I think she's very happy with her life, but I think there is a what if. And I know, and it's heartbreaking, but she has a very, again, fruitful life. And she had talked to me. She, on one of our sit downs, was like, freeze your eggs. And I was like, oh shit. And like, I think some people would be like, that was really aggressive. I took it as a huge love language. I was like, thank you for saying that, like having the courage to say that, to bring that to me, like so sweet.
But the problem is too, because I had people tell me that as well. It's expensive.
It's super expensive.
It's so expensive.
And it is invasive.
Yeah.
Like you are putting hormones into your body to
and you're not
create,
only paying to do that, you have to pay to store them.
Yeah. And I think it is great that we have that as an option, but you're right, it's not a viable option for everyone.
No.
I do appreciate that she told me that as like someone in hindsight being like, if you're even thinking about having kids, do it now so then you don't have to worry about it. So if you want to do your career and later on you're like, oh, maybe then you have those eggs, right? And I think that's a viable option. And I remember saying it to my sister once and she almost killed me. And it's like fair because again, I don't by any means blame her for being upset by me telling her that. I thought she was going to receive it like I did because I was like, you're right. What a good, smart idea. And my sister was like, I'll kill you. And I was like, fair. And again, that's where I should have read the room a bit. I should have been like, I don't have anything to say about my sister's procreation.
Yeah.
But I think it's, it's good to be aware of these options and
make whatever decision is right
best
for you. Yeah. But that's the hard part too, is because like ideally I think they say to freeze your eggs in your 20s, right? And you don't know what you will want in your mid to late 30s or whatever time period you think is right for you. So you might in your 20s say, I don't want kids.
Yeah.
You might in your 30s go, crap,
oh, shit.
Now I've aged out of that. I think it's more so if you do have the ability and you have give yourself the option.
Yeah.
Just because you don't know, and then it just gives you more options as you get older. Because if you don't want to, then
and even having this conversation, right? Like I was shocked she had it to me at 23. I was there 24. I was like, I can't believe you're saying that. I'm a child myself, child bride.
Not in middle America, baby.
No, actually. And I made the joke yesterday with Will and Noah that I was like, oh, they're married in their 30s. They're a child bride. And it's true. Like, it feels like that to me. I'm like, oh my God, you're so young.
Like in the cities, the age is so different.
Yeah.
Like people I knew in Colorado, they had kids younger because that's just it's just a different...
Yeah, culturally, like you said, it's just like in a societal again, and you're checking the boxes.
Yeah.
Some people, in certain states, certain cities, it's like I get the job, I get the girl, I get the, let alone different countries. You're so right.
It's just different. Yeah, it really depends. I think honestly, it really is. Again, I know we say this a lot, but it's who you are, what you want, and then just making the best decision for yourself long term.
Totally.
Yeah,
I would say. I'm going to admit something that's probably not a popular opinion, But like, even when people do decide to have kids, there's so much shame and judgment going on there. Yeah. And I am someone that I'm like, oh my God, you can't have one kid, which is so bonkers. I shouldn't feel that way, but I'm prejudiced because I come from a bigger family.
Well, you also see the beautifulness of like having
and
siblings.
I'm so thankful for my siblings. Yeah. So that's why when people are like, only have one kid, I'm like, really? Is that that's what you want to do?
That's a choice?
That's a really great, that's a choice. Yeah. And it's so not. Like I've met so many people of different backgrounds that have siblings that don't. Yeah. You're never ever going to be able to regulate like a solo child will be better than a child, but it's so funny because I have the personal experience of having siblings. I'm like, so everyone should have a sibling.
How many kids would you have if you had kids?
This is such a good. Why am I so expressive? Great question. I think 3.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would think. Okay, so twins are in my family, both sides of my family, which is a little terrifying because it's like on both sides and it usually skips generations and it skipped a generation already. So I'm like, whoo. There's a probability, not a high, but there's a probability I could have twins. If I had twins, I would be like, maybe I don't need to have another kid. Right, like I'd be like, there's 2,
done.
Awesome. Yeah. But I think because I'm the 4th, but I was raised with 3, and so I'm partial to 3 kids. Yeah. And I like the sibling dynamic of 3 kids because, like
I would have 1.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God, not me.
I would have
fully dragging only children. Forget what I said. I think 1 child is great. I'm serious. I'm not being facetious. But like I know I was closed-minded in that way. I'd always be like, only children are weirdos.
No, I'm not.
And I have so many friends that are only children. Yeah. So like I love you all. But like I genuinely, and my sister's dating an only child, and it's so funny because he's like thrust into the sibling dynamics. I feel like I'm his little sister already. Aww. They're not married, but like fully integrated into the family. Yeah. And I'll like come home and I'm crying over a boy and I'm like, and he's just like, yeah, okay. And he's so sweet about it. Steve is awesome. And then like the other day I said something and I was like, my hair's a little too light. Isn't it a little too late? And I was talking to Alex and she was like, no, I don't think so. And he was like, yeah, I don't think it's too late. And I was like, you're becoming a brother. I love it. Yeah. Aww. And like he was an only child. So it's funny to see that dynamic. Yeah. But tell me why you would want to only have 1 kid.
See, it's not based off because I love that I had siblings as well. For me, again, it's like the age thing.
Yeah, and time.
But then also time, and then also because again, like the way I think of like how much work goes into raising one, like,
let alone multiple.
Like I never think this is gonna be against what your thoughts are. I never think the kids should outnumber the parents. I just don't.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's a funny thing to say. Like, I love that you said that. Me, I'm like, like,
king.
Yeah. I don't know if I would, like, 4 feels like a lot. 4 feels like a lot. But I'm like, I don't know. There's something to be said about, like, and I obviously come from a really great family. And we always talk about that. Right. And so, like, we all have different, like, dynamics with each other, siblings-wise, and different dynamics with our parents. Yeah. And there's like a running joke in my family that I'm a lot like my dad, and I'm always like, why? Never. And I love my dad, but I'm like always just like, no, never. I could never be like my dad. And it's so fun. They're like, see, bitch, you're the most like dad. And so like I just remember, like that's something I think of fondly about our family all the time, and it's because there's so many of us, and because we have different dynamics with everyone. But you're right. There's points to having one child of like how much time you can give them,
and like the resources, the fun. Like it's just like I feel again. I think it's just so much. You're shaping this human being, and everything you do and everything you are, not only just DNA wise goes into them, and like you can't even control some aspects of it. But then every aspect you can, like I want like me and my partner to be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Like this is we see them struggling here. How do we do this? Like like. You affect everything in this person. Like that having more than one, I'd be like, oh my God, it's like running 2 businesses. It's a lot. Like completely different. Yeah.
And like, because you're the woman in the relationship, I'm sure you feel like maybe you would take on more responsibility. I don't think Neil's like that by any means.
No.
But I think you might.
I think that I would just naturally do that, and I would probably, I'm fearful for if Neil ever has, I'd be like, no, this is what we're doing. Like, I want this for them. And he's so kind. He'd be like, okay.
Yeah, he's so sweet. Yeah, and he really does respect your opinion.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. We're Neil stans. But it's so funny, like the most recent season of Sex and the City, and there's like, I don't know if you've seen the one with Charlotte, where she's like, well, but like there's a whole segment that she's like, I was a person before you, before I had kids, and it's like, I think not a lot of women and moms get to have that moment to shine after having children, and it's like, my mom still to this day, I am the youngest, and I am turning 28, and she is still worried about, like, she's, you know, not micromanaging by any means, but like, she still lives and breathes for me. Yeah. And I'm like, I love that. I'm so thankful for a supportive mom. Yeah. And your mom too. Yeah. And I'm like, be free.
I'm almost like, me and my sisters are in their 40s. Like, I'm almost in my 40s. And my mom still worries. Like, if I don't pick up my phone, something's wrong with me.
You're dead. My mom always, you're dead. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm like, I've personally put the locations on your phone. So you can look at my location.
That's why when people say, like, oh, like, I just have 18 years. I'm like, no, you don't.
No.
You have a lifetime. And you have a lifetime of worrying. You have a lifetime of great memories and caring. There's, like, great things that come along with that. But it is not 18 years.
Yeah. And God forbid you have a child like me. I call my mom every day. I'm like, hey, eating. She's like, hey. I'm like, so nothing's new. Just wanted to chat. She's like, okay, honey, tell me what are you eating? And I'm like, oh, I just cooked the... Poor woman can't go a goddamn day of her life without getting a call. That. I'm sure she does think of it fondly. Hopefully, Mom, you can blink twice if you're being mistreated. But it's so funny. Like, God forbid you have a kid like that, because it's good. But I'm saying you're not off for 18 years.
No,
you're not. Like, you are. Not. That's for life. You're for life.
That's a lifer.
Yeah. But you know, babies, it's a hard subject.
It's a hard decision, and I think that everybody's opinion should be respected in what they decide to do. And I think my mom says to me, she goes, who's going to take care of you when you get older? And like, that's like a fear for her, and like wanting us to have kids.
That's like projection. Sure.
Yeah. But then she always tells me, like, no, you don't need to worry about me. You're not going to take care of me. I'm like, didn't you have me for this purpose?
This is literally why you've told me now multiple times. This is my life's
purpose.
I'm supposed to take care of you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, and I do see that there is a companionship there. Yeah. You know, like if you do get along with your parents, like Meg ain't going anywhere, and she's going to be living in the guest house, you know.
Thing is, too, I think that also with kids too, like if you are able and lucky enough to have friends that are able to have kids at the same time as you, like like the cousins, like feel like you can really kind of raise them together. I think
camaraderie. Yeah.
You know, I think it's in Sweden or one of those countries that like they
Sweden.
That's how you say it too. Very extended.
Sweden.
But they do have these homes where they actually raise kids as
communal
like
homes.
Communal.
Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I really, truly think that's what it takes.
It takes a village, I will say. And like they always say that, and it sounds taboo,
but
or like
true.
It sounds, you know, but it is true. And it's like I've noticed that from nannying. Yeah. Like I remember nannying and being like, I need an adult conversation. And I loved those kids. But like when I would run into other moms that were like around the same age or like a little older than me, but they recognized me from picking up the kids every day. They were like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, thank God, an adult conversation, you know?
Yeah,
and it's like you need, first of all, that stimulant. Like you need stimulation with some other people.
I feel for those moms that are like, oh, God. If you guys are out there and you need somebody to talk to, we
comment in our section. We will talk to you. Yeah. And like also, if anyone wants to talk about your journey with either fertility or like why you don't want to have kids, we love strong opinions. Yeah. As long as
or
you're
why
not...
you do want to have kids. Maybe you're very much like, this is why it's important to. And like, we would love to hear all of those conversations. So again, just to wrap this up, it is your decision. Mm-hmm. Every journey is beautiful. Everybody's going through their own struggles and journeys and decision making in this huge, very important topic. Mm-hmm. If you need somebody to talk to, we're here to talk to. We're so happy you're here. Mm-hmm. Please don't forget to subscribe, follow, and like on all platforms. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.